I am Lamin Jai, and this is News Review. Coming up, GFA, that's Gambia for All leader, Bakari Bunja Dabo, has pinned the country's deplorable, or what he calls the deplorable condition or situation of the country on corruption, and he insists his party is the real deal in fighting the scourge. Also, the Minister of Tourism and Culture today launched the 2020 National Roots Homecoming Festival Organizing Committee ahead of the major event meant to sell the country to the rest of the world. I will also be speaking to Coach Pasamba Jau. We will be discussing the country's political situation there, a lot of happenings, a lot of political parties being registered. We will try to make sense of it all. But first, as usual, a review of the newspapers. I have the Standard, I also have the Point. I will begin with the Standard then. Their lead story today is saying Barrow is not behind Sunday's pro-government march. That's according to the Gambia for 5 years officials. There are also November 11 survivor warns government against allowing Jammeh back. Also, we will tear up UDP. That's according to presidential advisor there, Dusano. Also, James executive member resigns, joins NPP. That's the National People's Party of President Adama Barrow. The lead story is saying the organizers of a pro-government demonstration planned for Sunday have denied claims that President Barrow and his newly formed National People's Party are behind the procession. Rumors floated around that the president is behind the planned march to counter the 3 years Jatna, who staged an anti-government protest on 16 December, asking him to step down. Speaking to the Standard yesterday, Ibrahima Soriba, Secretary General of Gambia for 5 years, said his movement is a group of concerned Gambians advocating for President Adama Barrow to serve the 5-year constitutional mandate, but their plans are not funded by the president and they are independent of any political party. November 11 survivor warns government against allowing Jammeh back. Abdullah J. Dabo, a survivor of the November 11, 1994 massacre of Gambian soldiers at the Fajara and Yundum barracks, has warned the Barrow government against allowing former President Yahya Jammeh's return to the country. He also warned the government against issuing his party, the APRC, a permit to protest to demand his return. We will tear up UDP. That's according to Du Sano. President Adama Barrow's deputy political advisor has said that President Adama Barrow's National People's Party will tear up his former party, UDP, into 3. Speaking in a Standard interview, Du Sano said, contrary to recent claims by the spokesperson of the United Democratic Party, Alma Amital, that his party is not in any way bordered by the coming of NPP, the new party will tear up the UDP. He was speaking in an exclusive interview with the Standard. James, the executive member, resigns, joins NPP. Mbake Fati, an executive member of Gambia Moral Congress, has resigned from the My Fati-led party. In his resignation letter shared with the Standard, Fati stated, I have carefully weighed this decision for 1 week and in consultation with my family and loved ones, and I gave credence to the fact that the only practical way of realizing my political integrity is to tender my resignation. That's all about that for the Standard. The Point is also reporting on the 5 years group there, Gambia for 5 years to protest on January 12. VP says Gambia needs economic independence. BAC, that's Brikama Area Council, trains revenue collectors on new system or new digital tax system. We are living in dangerous times. That's according to the United Nations Chief, their Secretary General. So the Gambia for 5 years and peace building organization says it will protest to show solidarity with President Adama Barrow on 12 January 2020. VP says Gambia needs economic independence. Vice President Dr. Aissatou Touré has said that the Gambia needs economic independence through employment and other opportunities for wealth creation towards poverty eradication. VP Touré made these remarks at the 5th edition of Tough Africa Global Networking event and the commemoration of 30 years of Tough Africa Global held at a local hotel, of course. That's Coral Beach Hotel in Bruford on Tuesday. Brikama Area Council trains revenue collectors on new digital tax system. Brikama Area Council has kicked off a 2-day training for its revenue collectors on new digital tax management system it has just introduced. The training is underway at the West Coast Region Governor's Office in Brikama. We will leave it there for the papers. Now to our first story. The Ministry of Tourism and Culture today launched the 2020 National Roots Homecoming Festival Organizing Committee. The committee is tasked with organizing an event, or the event that is meant to sell the Gambia to the rest of the world in a bid to boost the country's tourism. The launch event was held at the Gambia Tourism and Hospitality Institute in Kanifing. Jaka Sisejeda was there, and she came through with this report.
The Roots Festival is an annual cultural event which is organized to attract more tourists, promote trade and generate income for the country through the exhibition of Gambia's rich and overwhelming culture.
Big carnival, all the cultural manifestations take place. We have a big Rio de Janeiro. We are going to deliver a good show. So kind of Calvary and parade from Westfield all the way down to the Independence Stadium for the official opening ceremony.
An organizing committee, which will be headed by Mr. Nyang Jai, is set to use its full potentials and resources in making sure that this year's festival will be different from the previous years.
It's time we start helping ourselves. So on that note, I'll say once again, thank you everyone, and we will work together, and in working together, we will achieve a common objective of positioning Brand Gambia, of making sure that Brand Gambia is visible, of making sure that we preserve our culture and heritage. And I will also remind the government that we now need to put our monies where our mouths are. When you say International Roots Homecoming Festival, there is an anchor. The anchor is Jufure and Kunta Kinte Island. We need to put some money there. I just visited those ruins, and I believe the government needs to put their monies where their mouths are. Then the world will take us seriously.
The Minister of Tourism and Culture, Ahmad Bah, highlighted the key aims, objectives of the festival.
However, basically, the aims and objectives of the festival remain the same, namely to reunite people of African descent with African while promoting the Gambia and her culture, her cultural, historical and traditional values. To further encourage cultural tourism and investment in Gambia in particular and Africa in general. To forge closer ties between the Gambia and Pan-African people for meaningful mutual cooperation and development. To promote, enhance and encourage African unity among Africans in the diaspora and Africa. To establish the truth about the history of Africa and the experience of its people using the vehicle of African arts, culture, music, and dance. To reaffirm the common heritage of African people the world over and define Africa's contribution to the world civilization. To promote the Gambia as a cultural tourist destination in the Americas, the Caribbean island, and Europe. To further encourage trade and investment in the Gambia's growing economy.
This year's festival will be done in a grand style as there will be a 7-day tour across the country from Banjul to Basse. Reporting for the Fatu Network News Review, Jaka Sisijete. The route...
So it's an interesting time in our country politically. There is a lot of political parties that are being registered, and not just that. Political parties that have been around have been making moves and counter moves. It is a very innovative affair these days. So to make sense of it all, I am joined by Coach Pasamba Jau. We will be discussing about the country's political situation, political parties being registered. Coach, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, sir, for having me.
So, Coach, first of all, what is your assessment of the state of the country politically? You have seen in recent weeks and months political parties, new political parties emerging, and not just that, the old ones also making their moves and counter moves. The political space is getting charger. What is your assessment?
that to be the case that post-Jammeh, you will have a lot of parties that will be coming up. And I think it's a great thing, definitely, for our country. And I think what is important now is for the voters to also take charge of their country, because you'll have a lot of people that are coming, and hopefully the voters would start asking the right questions so that at least our country will have the right start that it needs so badly.
You are saying it is a good thing there, but it is a very small country. You look at the size of this country and the population, and you have over a dozen political parties. All of these parties just sprouting every day. You think that is a good thing?
I don't think it is bad. I don't think there is anything. It is always good, I think, when people exercise a democratic right. Because at the end of the day, we might have 1 million political parties, but if the voters are serious about taking their politics seriously, then those parties that are not serious would definitely die a natural death. You know, a lot of parties still exist in this country that should not be existing in any country. But look at them; they become very redundant because people do not pay them any attention. And I also believe, Lamine, that our voters, the new and upcoming voters, are a lot more sophisticated voter. So as a result, you either have a program that can convince people, or you'll just be wasting your $1 million here that was used to register. And I also want to believe that at the end of the day, I think the IEC will be one of the most beneficial institutions in that country, because I can see a lot of people losing their deposits when it comes to elections. But it can never be a bad thing for people to participate or want to participate in shaping the destiny of our country.
So now let us go through the political parties then that have been registered in the recent weeks. It started with CA, Citizens Alliance. It started with them, of course, registering, and they held a launch event, a massive event there. And then you look at the composition, the likes of Dr. Ismaila Ceesay. These are the people who are part of or members of this political grouping. And then it is a party that is saying that they are the real deal when it comes to the future of this country, when it comes to shaping the very future of the Gambia. But then all after that, then you have President Adam Barrow's party. They are also saying that they are the ones who really, matter, or who are that Gambians should turn to when it comes to the future of this country. Bibu Dabo's party also has entered the fray. We also have the All People's Party of Gumbo Ali Toure. So now in a country where people's level of, there is so much illiteracy, and people's level of political awareness, at least at the grassroots level, is not that very high. How do people would go about deciding which party to turn to?
But you see, this is where it was going to be very important if this government had opened up the democratic space and at least start giving people the opportunity to at least know, what is what about politics. But I also do not want to underestimate the sophistication of the average Gambian voter. And I believe that these parties have their work cut out for them. Because, what is going to happen in the next elections, different from any other elections that we've ever had in our country, is now you have a lot of media houses that will be inviting potential leaders and asking them questions. And I also hope that there will be debates between candidates. And at the end of the day, I think people are not stupid. They'll be able to at least separate, the facts from fiction. And I think at the end of it, only those that can sustain the scrutiny will be able to stand on their legs. Otherwise, they will be out the door.
So how would you reconcile then with these people voting along regional, along tribal, and along other lines? How do you reconcile that with that? What much is known is that Gambians vote for people simply because of they know him, or simply because of he is in power. They want position or money from him, or because they come from the same area. So how do you really reconcile these two?
Well, you know, identity politics has always been here and it's all over the world. But the problem that most of these parties that want to rely on them will have is the country is so small. We have so many people running. At the end of the day, you might have a candidate that identifies with, you know, a lot of people that other candidates or other parties identify with. So I believe at the end of the day, eventually it will be the battle of minds. Definitely. I hope it gets to that. We may not get there right away, but this is why we should always educate and educate. And I mean, what people need to understand, the Gambian voter, and this is where we'll be talking about this thing, you know, a lot more, is that we cannot continue to vote for today. And that is vote for somebody because you know the person, vote for somebody because you like the person, vote for somebody because they give you money, vote for somebody because they give you benefit and all that, and start voting for our future. You know, I saw Alaji Barrow wrote something today that does the Gambia suffer from having few people that loves her. And I believe that is one of our biggest problems. Patriotism is what lacks. There are so many people who will build political parties for selfish reasons, so that maybe they will end up being ministers or whatever you want to call it. But Gambians should transcend that. We have to move away from that. Because if you look at our country, in all honesty, for 54 years, what do we have to show for it? Nothing. Our people live in poverty. Our people live in wretchedness. So this is the time when people should vote their reality and say, you know what, we are sick and tired of some of these people who are just here to have a name, build a party, that they cannot name more than 3 people in that party, and all that. So that we have to elevate the conversation. But we also have to help our voters to understand that we cannot continue to have the same problem that we have every year. It's like for 54 years, every year, you know, during the rainy season, after the rainy season, what do we talk about? They cannot sell their crops. We did not have fertilizers. We do not have this. The schools do not have chairs. The hospitals do not have medications. The roads are bad. For 54 years, at some point, we'll have to look ourselves and say, you know what, now maybe it's the time for us to read for genuine leaders. If you do not do that, we'll have this vicious circle of voting in people who have no business being in politics or supporting these people who just believe that I can raise $1 million anyhow and just form a political party. It's a joke. But we have to stop it. For it to stop, though, the voter must be awoken to realize that, you know what, I'm not going to be taken for a fool. As soon as we do that, then we'll elevate the political discussion.
And then there is this thing. We know what much is also known is that this country is facing a lot of problems, corruption, you know, bad governance, a lot of problems. And all these political parties, when they come, what they tell people is that they can do it differently. But when you closely look at their message, what they say, what they tell the Gambians, there is not much difference as to what politician A would say, comparing that to what politician B would say. So, I mean, how do the Gambian really interrogate what these politicians are saying to really make a sound judgment or conclusion that, hey, this is the politician that can really turn around the future of the country?
But you see, that's where the media can also help, because this is where the media would also move away from just regurgitating news. What I mean by that is just republishing press conferences or press releases and all that to start interrogating these politicians and engaging in very intensive investigative journalism, where if a politician would stand and say, you know what, I'm going to fight corruption. Most of the people that are running for office or aspiring to run for office have had records. They've run public institutions or maybe worked somewhere else. Let's hold their feet to fire and challenge them on their record. What have you done when you were this, that, or the other? We have people who were ministers or who were vice presidents or who were members of parliament, and all these people who are out there. We have to be able to challenge them on their record. If you are fighting corruption, tell us what you were doing when you served in such capacity to fight that. If you cannot prove that to me, don't come and tell me today that you're going to fight corruption when you had the opportunity to fight it. but did not do it, but just because it's palatable now to say what I say. But I believe this is where the media also must take their job seriously and question people. And don't worry about all these distractions that come with every headline that comes. There will be a party member that is mad because of it did not favor their party. No, forget that. And just focus on the facts, focus on the news, and help your readership, your listeners to be able to at least see what is happening, see the issues, and then take it from there.
And now, one thing that has also been happening, Coach, in the past weeks has been this issue of cross-carpeting. One person moving from one party to the other. We have also seen that UDP, for example, we have seen high-profile Gambians joining their party, high-profile Gambians leaving their party to join other parties. You go to GDC, for example, the same thing. We have seen just recently, was it yesterday, the deputy leader announced that he was joining President Adama Barrow's party. So what do you make of that, this issue of people leaving one party for the other?
Well, that's a normal thing. It is to be expected. And you'll be hearing a lot more of those things happening. I saw Lamdo C wrote something that, you know what, you'll be hearing more of this. Yes, a lot of them would happen. A lot of people will be crisscrossing because there are some people who join parties, not because of the policies and programs of the parties, but because of the opportunities that could be there for them. So as a result, you'll see people gauging. Okay, UDP might possibly form the next government, I'm running to UDP. No, Adama Barrow has a chance of winning, I'm going to Adama Barrow. Or Mama candidate. So you will have that will continue to happen. But that's what I'm saying. There are a lot of people whose work is not genuinely what is going to elevate the livelihood of the Gambian people, but what is going to elevate them individually and personally.
So now, Coach, let us talk briefly about President Adama Barrow's party, the National People's Party. I mean, it has sparked this whole new debate. The party was just registered. Their launch event is yet to be held, but it has set off, tongues have been wagging in respect of him forming his own political party there. What do you make of it?
Well, it's disappointing because I believe this is also part of the coalition agreement that he was not supposed to succeed himself. But what he has done is pretty much put the whole coalition agenda aside and focus on his agenda. And I've been talking about this for a very long time. And sadly for Gambians, this was supposed to be the elections where Adama Barrow was supposed to oversee the elections, was not going to participate in it, make sure that we have free and fair elections and then give the Gambians the chance to vote their consents. But again, what I just want Gambians to also realize is, Adama Barrow has a right to form his political party. You know, it's between morality and law. You know, what he does by forming a party is lawful. But it's not necessarily moral, given the fact that he had agreed not to do that. But the average voter, though, should ask themselves whether what we are getting from Adama Barrow is enough for them to want to return him back in power. This is where I believe that the Gambian voter should decide whether they would be used, we'll have politicians using us as ping pong or football, kicking us in every direction, or we'll continue to put seriousness in our lives and vote for a leader that we believe would be able to address our basic needs and aspirations as a people and a country. And that's the thing. So at the end of the day, Adama Barrow would now have to go before the people and would be subjected to a referendum. His 3, 5 year or whatever rule will be subjected to a referendum by the people. And if the people decide that, you know what, he is the best choice for them to run that country, good. If they believe that he has not done enough for them to be returned back to office, then great. But that's the thing. At the end of the day, it boils down to what people want, and I hope they will do the right thing.
So now let's also talk about the timing of him forming his party and the registration. It is coming at a time when you have this whole group baying for his political blood. They want him to leave office, and all of a sudden he came out 1 or 2 occasions. He said he was not going to leave office, and then the party came. Of course, when he was touring the country, he did announce that he was forming his own political party. But the timing of it is coming amid this whole campaign for him to leave office. So now, what do you make of that? This campaign versus the president's desire to not just stay in office, but to also form his own political party and then continue for only God knows how long.
Well, the timing is very interesting, and I think this was Barrow rushing it to just validate himself, and I think he wanted to make sure that his party was already formed and situated before January 20th. That was when he pretty much technically became the president and would have been president for 3 years. So that's what it is. I think the timing has nothing it's just pure politics. The push and pull between 5 years and 3 years, I think is still good for our democracy. Because at the end of the day, we must have a country where, a country of divergent views, where people who have different opinions about different stuff will be out there to at least say, you know what, we agree with this, we do not agree with that. All I hope is that this conversation would continue in a very peaceful manner. Because at the end of the day, our country deserves this kind of discussion, definitely.
So now, still on the President Barrow there and his, desire to stay in office until 2021, and then the party, what we have seen is that the National People's Party, even the name and then the symbol was something that people, talked about. Something, what did you make of that? Because the symbol, somehow saying a white horse. Gambia is not necessarily a country where you will walk around and see a white horse. Some are saying, okay, the name people's, the word people's, a lot of people, debated that, had an issue with that.
Well, it's one of those things. People, there are too many parties, there are too many names to make, so people will come up with anything. I'm not going to put too much emphasis on the symbol or the name. I think what matters is the program and commitment of these parties to the people. I think that is the most fundamental issue. Because if we focus so much on what the name is, or whether it is a horse or a cow or a donkey, that will not amount to anything, because that is not going to pay anybody's school fees. It's not going to provide medication for anybody. I think what matters is for us to look at these parties and politicians and then, deal with the issues as they are. But I'll have to go because I am getting calls.
I know. I was even going to ask you. I was going to ask you my very last question there, and that has to do with GFA, Gambia for All. Helmed by former Vice President Bakary Bunja Dabo. Today they held a press conference.
Well,
they are all the party of the old guard.
The new PPP.
Some people call it. What do you make of them quickly?
It's nothing. It's just the party of the PPP. That's just what it is. It's the PPP, and I think the biggest loser in this is the PPP, definitely.
Coach Pasamba Jau, thank you very much as usual for your time. Thank you. As always, thank you. So that's Coach Pasamba Jau speaking to us from the United States. So now we'll move away from that and bring you that press conference there, where the leader of Gambia for All has linked the country's deplorable, what he calls the country's deplorable condition or situation, to corruption, vowing that a GFA government would put an end to the scourge there. GFA held a news conference today, 1 week after IEC registered the party as one of the country's newest political parties. And this is coming also at a time when the country's political space is getting ever crowded. Let's go bring you that press conference there and listen to what Mr. Dabo has to say.
It's very difficult for me to keep strictly to it. Sometimes I may depart, so don't be very surprised if sometimes I move away from what I've been asked to read. Following, ladies and gentlemen, following the registration and therefore the official recognition of our party, we are keen to have this formal contact with the Fourth Estate to give you your proper and more honorable name, and to use your prestigious medium, talking to you collectively, use your medium to showcase our organization in the sense of recalling its genesis, also dilating on its structure as well as on the mission it has set itself. All that is with a view to reveal a little bit about what we are about as a party. And of course, you are at liberty, if you so wish, to share what information you get with your respective readership and listeners. As for the genesis of our party, one will need to go back to the National Delegates Conference of 13 July 2019, when participants drawn from various horizons came together as Gambians to discuss our national situation and to share ideas about the challenges facing our country. I should, in this regard, add one notable detail, which is that a significant number of the participants gathered at that delegates conference were at this time supporters of the PPP, who felt disillusioned by developments within that historic party and who were keen to explore other options for the expression of their political convictions. The exchanges at the conference concluded on a note of grave concern about the state of our country and what we saw as the absence of a clear direction, not to talk of firm resolve, to take on the daunting challenges of rebuilding our country. And they are indeed daunting challenges. For if the 2016 elections helped free our people from the clutches of a most destructive dictatorship, we had to recognize that the legacy of that dictatorship is still very much in place. And what is that legacy? What is that legacy? It is clear by all objective standards that in the wake of 2 decades of misrule, of mismanagement, and of institutionalized corruption, the defining characteristics of the country we are left with include the following. 1, an extremely weak state with a much polarized society and a weakened sense of national oneness. 2, a weak and fragile state whose key state institutions are either decimated or in an advanced state of decay. 3rdly, a fragile state with an economy in doldrums. 4thly, a weak and fragile state tottering under a bewildering pileup of social and environmental problems. 5thly, a weak and fragile state with a dysfunctional national security system. These are some of the features we recognize about our country in the wake, as I said, of 2 decades of dictatorship, to the point that arguably one can say what we are left with was more of a country and not a state. But that was not all. In addition, at the delegates conference, we had cause to deplore the point that even in the face of such a situation, there was little evidence of ideas or even the determination to take on the challenges. The coalition project, I'm referring to the arrangement agreed upon by vast majority of the political class at the time, which led to the electoral defeat of the dictator. That coalition project had promised that top priority would be accorded to wide-ranging reforms for rapidly putting in place a sound foundation for rebuilding our ruined state. today, 3 years into that transition, the slow pace of the steps being taken, where any action has started at all, that slow pace is the cause of dwindling public confidence. Sadly, the focus of political discourse in the country generally continues to be on petty partisan issues rather than the articulation of clear ideas for fostering stable democratic governance with vibrant economic transformation in order to meaningfully address the challenges of unemployment, particularly among the youths, the problems of poverty and of blighted prospects, and such other pressing problems. The situation is leading the citizens to blame the entire political class, not just the government, for this lackluster state of affairs, and the hope the people need badly continues to elude them. Now, it was against this backdrop that the 13th July Delegates Conference defined and agreed on a set of values and principles needing to be defended and promoted in order to avert the prospect of a failed state. The practical step to that end was the decision to form a party to be dedicated to the promotion of those values for the realization of a progressive state and societal project. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, that was how the idea of our own political party was born. We aim from the outset to offer our people, through our ideas and plans for getting the country out of its present difficulties, a vision of a better Gambia, a much better Gambia. We are motivated by a sense of patriotic duty, as well as by an awareness of our collective responsibility to contribute to the country's recovery and progress. The name Gambia for All was chosen to reflect our faith in and our commitment to safeguard and promote inclusiveness in the life and actions of the state, with all citizens living in a society that will be free, open, and fair. Since that historic decision, a lot of effort has been put in to concretize the wishes of the conference. A constitution reflecting the broad philosophy and values of a united country, the values of a caring society, and the values of a democratic, effective, and responsible state was discussed and adopted by a constitutive congress of our party held from the 11th through 13th October last. Our further ideas for solving the country's myriad of problems are presently at an advanced stage of elaboration. They will, in the very near future, be launched in the form of a vision document outlining our ideas and plans for addressing the country's problems. The broad range of these problems include issues of governance, the economy, security, the environment, natural resources, gender, social services, the youth sector with its particularly acute challenges, and many others. Another area in which we have deployed efforts since the 13th July decision has been to work towards meeting the requirements of the law for the registration of our party. We are happy that with the registration, our party's status as a stakeholder in the national political process has now earned formal recognition. We want to proceed without any further delay with the urgent task of building our party. In the next 8 to 10 weeks, we plan to put in place our party structures as provided for in our constitution. These include both national leadership and local leadership structures, grassroots organs, as well as mass organization structures to serve as the dedicated framework for promoting, for harnessing the energies and for promoting the active participation of the female and youth segments within our party following. For now, we want to express delight and enthusiasm on our joining the national political arena. To the political class as a whole, we say salam. We say to them, here we come. We come in peace and for peace. For we abhor violence in any form, verbal or physical. We come with an open mind and with open arms. We bear no ill will towards anyone. We will seek to promote understanding and collaboration with all. We are open to dialogue, but for us, the focus of such dialogue will remain program-focused discourse, not sterile politics, not sterile polemics, not petty politics, and not crypto-personal issues. I should emphasize that the choice of the name for our party is not fortuitous. Gambia for All places special emphasis on inclusiveness, a quality that has so far very much eluded our national life. Our party, our party insists on discipline, as indicated in our motto. Further, we stand for transparency, to be underpinned by the most appropriate processes for the organization and operation of politics, as well as for the governance of the state. On a final note, I hold out a hand of constructive relationship with the media. Gambia for All recognizes the critical role which the media, especially the independent press, is called upon to play in a modern democratic state. You will always find in us an open, willing, and reasonable interlocutor. Just as much we expect of you, ladies and gentlemen of the media, we expect of you professionalism and scrupulous observance of the ethics of your own chosen profession. And it is on this note that I salute you and thank you for your attention. A swarm of bees and a corn cob. Well, as you perhaps know, these kind of issues are generally debated among party members. The whole thing about a symbol is what they call symbolism, what it is supposed to suggest to people. We adopted a corn cob, which you cited, as a symbol of promise. It's a promise of prosperity. The corn, not only the shoot of it, but the cob of it suggests that there is what is held out is a prospect of prosperity for the country. That was the main argument. The main argument in favor of it. You ask about it. But the other element in our party symbol, the bees. I may also offer that, even though you didn't ask. That one also seems, in our eyes, to represent one species of insects, which is associated in many cultures, not only Gambian cultures, but in many cultures with very good qualities. Qualities of hard work, for instance. Qualities of discipline. Qualities also determination to defend what they possess. If you have any personal encounter with bees, you know what they are. When you come near what they have, you know that you may get it, and it's very valuable, but you cannot expect to get it easily. It will be defended. But also, it is that very product also is produced by the sweat of their front hard work. So that's really some of the ideas that led our party to adopt a symbol, the bees and the corn cob. Yes, Gambia as a country, as I said, the point is arguable. Some people may not agree, but there is reason to believe, because you know the meaning between country and state in general terms is that while a country is more of a geographical expression, just a piece of land which is definable, is just usually called a country. A state, on the other hand, refers to an arrangement essentially based on institutions for running that country. Now, when we say Gambia almost failed to become a state under Yahya Jammeh, it's because those institutions which are the pillars for the state have been destroyed. So destroyed, you know, the identity, what was left, for instance, under Yahya Jammeh, what was left of the legislative branch parliament in terms of being fit for the purpose for which it is elected. Even the judiciary was terribly undermined, we know it. Not to talk of the civil service as an institution, not to talk of the civil society institutions themselves have been. So really that's what led people to the conclusion, many people to the conclusion that our institutions have been so destroyed under Yahya Jammeh that you can say really as a state we almost didn't exist, or if we existed we are very fragile and very weak.
Thank you.
We will set out with the determination not to stop at just empowering, or not to just stop at making pronouncements. We'll have already got quite a number of ideas. I did answer it partly to the question by saying that the economy is the engine. That economy has to be made more vigorous and expanded. For now, the economy is very small, very weak, and very much focused on very small number of productive activities. That's the main reason why the youth particularly find themselves elbowed out. By broadening the base of the productivity within the economy, we think we'll be vastly expanding opportunities. We cannot guarantee for a start that there will be jobs for all youth, but there will be substantial increase in the number of jobs. And that also goes for women. So that as I said, when we have our vision document published, these ideas will be set out even in greater detail. But for now, I can assure you that the approach will be mainly on better transformed economy plus training to improve the competence of youth, because that also is an important factor, where if you look at even what little is available in the economy, there is a good number of opportunities that are occupied by non-Gambians. Now we want to change a situation whereby young people can get it, not by expelling the others, but by making, equipping the young people with the skills they require. I think these are the two main prongs of our approach to solving unemployment for young people.
Okay.